Hey guys. So, big news. I've made it to Spain. Oh my goodness, what a crazy, crazy ride this has been. It's been ridiculous. I know. Um, but we made it. We're here. We have arrived. I got here about 4 a.m. Sunday morning. It is now a little after 12, I think. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, after 1, actually. It's after 1 on Tuesday. So I've been here a little over 48 hours, finally over my jet lag, just settling in. So the Rhoda base is taking their quarantine very seriously. I am checked into a hotel room here on base, and I have to stay here for 2 weeks. I have to wait 2 weeks before I'm able to start the actual check-in process. So yeah, I'm just chilling in the hotel room, living my best quarantine life, as they say. So, as always, we're going to spice things up with a little reading vlog because there's only so much I can talk about in a hotel room, honestly. So, the month of August is supposed to be the Newts readathon. I don't think it's actually called the Newts anymore. It's like magical readathon or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, the premise is you've done your owls already, which I did do. I did that back in April. And so now you're studying for your newts, which is to get your actual career path, which I'm going for a herbology professor, strictly because, and I want to tell you this background story. So Jesse and I went to Harry Potter World 2 years ago now. We went to Harry Potter World in Orlando, had an amazing time. However, we went at a bad, like, it was very crowded. We went like the Tuesday or something after Easter, which previously leading up to, I thought, oh, we're going on a Tuesday. It's going to be, lines aren't going to be so bad. But it was the Tuesday after Easter. So everyone, like a lot of schools are on their spring break or they're on some sort of vacation, and it was just crazy, crazy crowded. And we spent pretty much the whole day standing in lines. Like the Gringotts ride was legitimately 2 hours long. But it was great because I have an amazing husband, and we basically just spent this whole day standing in line talking about different, if if scenarios, like if you were in the magical world, what would your career path be, and what would you do in this situation, and how do you think this would actually play out? And it was just a great day. So the reason we're doing the herbology professor route is because during the course of this day, it was decided that that would have been what I would have ended up doing if I was in the magical world. So, for one of the classes that you just have to get an A on, I'm doing History of Magic, which you just have to read a historical thriller, basic, very basic prompt. I had picked My Lady Jane, which I read the first chapter of which last night, and so now I know already from the first chapter, this isn't really a straightforward historical fiction, I thought. And so this is just kind of a very fantastical retelling of her life. And it's already first chapter in, it's veered off from actual history. And so, yeah, basically what I'm saying is I now know that this is not strictly a historical fiction, and I'm sorry about that, but these are the books that I packed, and we just got to work with what we're given, okay? Okay. So this is the lovely view I have from my hotel room. Very nice, very, very nice. That building, I think that might be the Lodge, which is like the other hotel that's on base. And then we have a lot of construction happening. On the far side over there, that's the commissary. Next area, which is the little shopping area I'm allowed to go to. This really unfortunate designed water tower right there. More construction. Okay guys, we are switching it up already. This book I don't really like. Yeah, it's a very, like I said, it's a fantastical take on a historical event, which I feel like goes a little too far into the wacky, fantastical side of things. It is funny, but in some cases, again, just a little too much onto the wacky side of funny, and to the point where I felt like it came across almost like crack fan fiction at points, which is not my thing. Um, yeah. And I know that I talked about before that, you know, I only have so many books at this point in time, so we just kind of work with what we got. But as I've said before, life is too short for reading not great books. So, gonna DNF that, unfortunately. Fortunately, Libby came through for me. It was perfect timing. A hold that I had on place for They Called Us Enemy came through, and I just finished that up earlier this morning. Was so good. Such a good book. 5 stars, easy. They Called Us Enemy is a graphic novel memoir of George Takei and his time when he was a little boy in the Japanese internment camps. So again, it's a memoir, so we're still not really hitting that fantastical fiction prompt, but whatever. We roll with the punches. But yeah, so that was a really, really good book, and I'm very pleased that I switched over because it was just a much better time, much more enjoyable read, I felt like, and a much more prevalent read. Like, it was one of those reads that was like makes you think, and you actually have to like recognize some of the parallels between this really bad thing that happened in the 40s and towards the end of the book, spoiler, but towards the end of the book, Takai compared it to the immigration camps that happened just a couple years ago in 2018. Yeah, you guys remember that? I'd actually, this is bad, but I'd kind of forgotten about it in the light of all the stuff that's happened in 2020. But yeah, that happened just a couple years ago. And I think it did a really good job of putting across the message of, you know what? You have to study and know and remember your history. Otherwise, you are doomed to repeat it. It's very true. All right, moving on to our next prompt. I have Arusha and the End of Time. This is also for a herbology prompt, which is to read a book with flowers on the cover. You can just barely see there's some little stylized ones there. And there's another one. So they're faint, but they are there, and therefore it counts. Yeah. Also, in order to fully implement the full quarantine experience, I went and got myself a copy of Animal Crossing. Definitely get the hype of the game now. It's very, very addicting. This is my little village so far. I really clearly do not know what I'm doing. I haven't done any real landscaping so far. But yeah, we're enjoying it. Hi. Okay, she really wants to talk to me. I'm going to talk to her now. Okay, bye. Hello, people. It's update time. I finished Arusha and the End of Time. So good. 5 stars. Look at this. I actually had to break out my annotation sticky notes because there were just so many great little one-liners. Like, here, I'll give you an example. So this one, they're talking about when the council meets. They gather on Tuesdays and Thursdays and during full moons and new moons, and also for the season premiere and finale of Game of Thrones. Like, I just love stuff like that. It's just so fun. And then there was another really good one that caught my eye. This is like a little pre-COVID moment where they're talking about, hang on, where is it? You really don't want to touch other people's hands. That's the fastest way to get a cold or the flu. And if you're not vaccinated, you'll die. Like, I just thought that was really funny because that's how everyone's talking these days. But this was written like 2 years ago. Oh, this was another thing too. So the author of this book, Roshani Chokshi, she also wrote The Gilded Wolves, which I had not made that connection because I'm really, really bad about keeping track of authors and other books that they have written. So I actually DNF'd The Gilded Wolves whenever I picked that up, like a year or so ago. I just didn't care for it. It wasn't for me. And so, yeah, I just think that goes to show that an author's writing style or an author's books shouldn't be unilateral. If you didn't like one book by an author, you shouldn't take that to mean that you're not going to like everything that they wrote, because, like I said, this was 5 stars. It was amazing. I love the mythology. I love the characters. We had a sassy pigeon for an animal sidekick guide, which is just so perfect. I didn't know I needed that in my life, but I really, really did. I love Minnie. She's so great. Minnie is like another child in the group with Arusha. Would you like a summary? Would you like a background of this book before I start talking about it more? Okay, I can do that. Arusha, that's this girl right here. Her mother works in a museum, and in the museum there's this lamp which has the legend that if anyone lights the lamp, it's going to bring the end of time. Arusha knows this legend. She doesn't really believe it. It's just a silly legend. And so one day, a group of kids from her school convince her to light the lamp, which she does, and it awakens the sleeper, and we have to start our quest. So basically, Arusha is... I'm not sure, I'm still not totally sure if she's descended from the gods or if they just like molded her in some way. I'm not totally clear on that. But she is in some way connected to, hang on, I'm going to mess up the name. Is it on the back? Pandava. The legendary Pandava brothers, which is this ancient Indian legend about these group of brothers and their heroic adventures. So it's saying she's descended from that group of brothers, and she is then tasked with saving the world, even though she has brought all the danger in place anyway. Then Minnie is another descendant of the brothers, divinely impacted in some way, and I just love her character so much. She is very smart, and she's very, if it's a crisis situation, like an immediate crisis, she's very good about staying calm and collected and like solving the problem in a pretty efficient and methodical way. However, if it's more of like a long range problem and she has time to really think about it, then she kind of gets into her head and comes up with all of the problems and every possible worst case scenario that could happen, and just basically just overthinks everything, which I can relate to, if we're being honest. So yeah, I really liked her. Again, loved Boo. He's the pigeon, sassy pigeon. And yeah, this was just a really, really great book. Awesome. Moving right along, I have just started my next book. So this book is The Heart's Invisible Furies. This is for the prompt of reading a book that was longer than the book you'd read previously. This book is, it's a book. It's, how many pages we got? It's like 500 something, I'm sure. 580, so almost 600 pages. It's a lot. We're taking place in 1940s Ireland, and so far we've just had Catherine, who is a young girl who's gotten pregnant out of wedlock, and her family and her church kicked her out. And I don't think it's really going to be about her, though, because the narrator is her son. And so I think the main character is actually going to be her son, and he's just kind of giving the backstory. I'm only like 25 pages in, so I have not gotten far. He's just kind of giving the backstory of how he came to be. But it's really good. I really like the writing style. I'm loving, so the author is Irish, which means that the characters have a very authentic Irish way of speaking, which I love. It's a personal pet peeve of mine when characters are like they're Irish or they're Australian or they're Scottish. They're Australian and they just say, "G'day, mate," like once, but that makes them Australian. Their linguistic impact on the story is limited to just that very one or two prominent, well-known statements that are Australian or are Scottish or whatnot. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the more authentic Irish linguistics taking place in this book. As far as non-reading updates go, I'm still chilling in my hotel room. Great. Having a good time. It's Monday, so I'm now halfway done. So I just have one more week to go, which is great. I'm just going to keep reading, keep watching Disney Plus, play some more Animal Crossing. It's going to be a good time. On today's quarantine microwave only menu, oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Things all gross. Okay, so lunch was a bit disappointing, but what has not been disappointing is this book. I don't even know how to start talking about this book. It was a lot. There's a lot to unpack here. It was so good. Let's start with that. Easy 5 stars. Such a good book. So basically, we're in Ireland. We start in 1945, but it's one of those books that takes place over a full lifespan. We have our protagonist, Cyril, who is like I said, he was born in 1945, and then each chapter jumps forward exactly 7 years in his life. And so we're just seeing a little bit of the highlights of his life, so up until he's 70 years old. Cyril is a gay man, so we're dealing with a lot of the internal struggle that he had being raised in Ireland and the very strong Catholic background that Ireland has, especially during that time. As I said before, his mother got pregnant out of wedlock, so she was thrown out of the Catholic Church, and that kind of set the tone, I guess, for the relationship that Cyril had with the church throughout the rest of his life. I wish I'd done a better job of vlogging throughout my process of reading this book, because I think that would have been a much better way to show it. Because it was a roller coaster of emotions. I think the author did a very good job of using a writing style that reflected the age of Cyril that we were seeing at that time, whatever chapter we were in. So the earlier chapters when he's, a boy and a young man, they were very, very lighthearted chapters, honestly, I felt like. There were bad things happening, but it was all presented in just this kind of off-the-cuff, random, sometimes irreverent manner that I think really only young people are capable of. But it was just funny. I thought it was hysterical. The first third of this book was just hilarious. I loved it. And then it wasn't until we started getting toward the middle that those bad things that were still happening took on a much more serious tone, and that was when I started crying. I cried 3 times for this book, which is a lot for me. So yeah, and then as we're getting more towards the end of his life and it's becoming more reflective and more, again, bad stuff still happens, but it's more presented in, yes, bad things have happened, but here's the good that had come out of it. Here's the silver lining. More, I don't know what you'd call that. More, not accepting exactly, but more able to see beyond what the bad thing that had happened, I guess. Like, yes, this bad thing happened, but there's all these other good things happening in your life as well, type of a thing, I guess. I'm sure there's a word for that, but I don't know what it is. Very strong read for me. It was very intense. I will definitely be rereading this at some point, just because there's so much to unpack in this book. It was, I was catching on to it at the end. A lot of very circular themes throughout it, of like, this thing that happened to the grandfather then happened to the son, now it's happening to the grandson. And we saw it a lot with Cyril and his mom, his birth mother, who put him up for adoption. Their lives crossed over each other multiple times without them realizing that they were mother and son. And so that was some nice introspection there as well. Highly, highly recommend. Whew, it was a lot. Because it was such a lot, I'm probably not going to read anything for a minute, actually. I feel like I need a half day or something. I need to take a day or something to just take in everything that happened there. But when I do feel up to reading more, I'm going to be picking up this book, The Mermaid, the Witch, and the Sea, which, can we take a minute to appreciate that gorgeous cover? Good Lord, you can't even really see how gorgeous it is because of my bad camera, but it's beautiful. Got some more on the back here. I'm getting some strong Studio Ghibli vibes from it. I'm looking forward to a nice, hopefully lighter YA fantasy as kind of a palate cleanser from that heft of a book. And yeah, it's the last day of the readathon. I got about 50 pages of my book left, so we're gonna open up this really cute bottle of sangria that my sponsor got me and finish that off.